for joining us today. I'm so excited to share your journey and chat with you. There is so much insight that I think you can really provide others with regards to how to make the program work no matter what, even if you're traveling. So I'm really excited to dive more into your travel today while you were doing the program. To start off, can you give us a little background in terms of your name, where you're calling from, and just a little bit about you?
Yeah, so I am Susie Ramage, and I am calling from Augusta, Maine, so the Augusta area, I should say. And I started the program because I was sort of stuck at my pre-pregnancy weight. My son is 6, so I should have lost that baby weight by then. And no matter what I was doing, I just seemed to be like not losing, and like not even anything. I had done a couple Beachbody programs and I was following like some meal plans and things, and I just wasn't effectively having any sort of results. I ended up starting 5 days after I turned 40. So, like, almost exactly right after my 40th birthday is when I started the programs. So,
And how did you find the program? That's always so interesting
I,
where people come from.
when people ask me about it, they're like, oh, it sounds like really restrictive. And I'm like, it is, but it isn't, right? Like, I think for me, it was like, okay, I know exactly like what I can choose from, what's going to work. And it was nice having the coach's help. Like if I put foods in and I'm like, wait a minute, like I ate something that was approved, but like I gained 3 pounds, like what happened? And they're like, yeah, that probably is a reaction in your body. And I was like, oh, who knows? Okay. That's good to know. And just really noticing some of that. And for me, when I started the program, I had, really bad, dry, flaky skin on my face. And it was, just this bizarre thing that happened after I had a kid, and it never went away. And I figured it was hormonal, and I just was like, whatever, I can't seem to get rid of it. Like I tried psoriasis cream and it didn't do anything. I would say about a week after the program, a week and a half after I started the program, it cleared up and it like completely went away.
Now, what we do for anyone who doesn't know, we take out the top inflammatory foods, then we test them in maintenance. Did you add any foods back in that caused this? Like you could pinpoint which one it was?
Yeah. So, and that was actually one of the things like this past the first round that I did 2 rounds. So the first round I didn't add as much back in. The second round, because holidays and eating like out with family and things, it's a little more difficult to be as noticeable about things that people have cooked. So I noticed when I cook with oils, so I can eat olive oil and I can eat avocado oil, but if I cook with oils, I break out an eczema on my neck almost like within 24 hours.
Yeah.
uh, if I eat dairy, in more than like a couple, like one serving once every like few days, my skin starts to itch, and it like starts getting dry and flaky. So it's like a combination of I have the oils, gluten sensitivity, and the dairy, like all three, like, and it's probably all three like combined make it compounded and worse.
And I love that you were able to find out which one reacts for you, as well as how much you can tolerate, because sometimes individuals can get very overwhelmed where, there's practitioners that saying you should be gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, nut-free, egg, and it just becomes so overwhelming. Like, what the heck do I eat? So being able to pinpoint which ones cause issues for you, I think is really, really powerful.
Yeah, and I would say like it's, we eliminate it and then I added it back in, and one of the things that I've noticed is it isn't necessarily that I like can never have it. I just know that like this is going to happen if I have like, multiple servings of it. So if I had cheese twice in one day, and the next day my whole face itched all day. Like it was just
Mhm.
this, it was like a super eczema flare up, and I was like, oh, that's an inflammatory response to having too much dairy. So I just try to kind of limit it. And it's like, okay, if I'm going to have cheese because I'm having some special meal, I'll eat it then, but I won't have it like multiple times during the week, and it keeps it at bay.
Amazing. And I love that as much as individuals, obviously one of the goals that they come to the program with is weight loss, but I'm trying to look at how can we optimize whole body health. So the fact that you're seeing a reaction in your skin is just a testament to how much food and wellness can impact your body.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
you mentioned previously that you signed up around your 40th birthday or a couple days after. Was there a pivotal moment that you said, like, I have to do something for my health?
Yeah, so I last February I sort of was like, okay, I'm stuck. I don't seem to be seeing things. I've gone through like some self-development work with another coach, and like just sort of like, okay, internally like trying to switch my brain of really just not being happy with myself, right? I was substantially smaller than I am now when I got married, which was 10 years ago. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. And I was like, it's really hard to be like, oh, geez, that's not the same person you married. And how do you get back to that? And, when I did it before, I was working out 3 hours a day, and I have a 6-year-old. I can't work out 3 hours a day. Like, I don't have 3 hours a day to give. Like, I barely get 20 minutes to myself. Like, so I just decided that it was like I would look in the mirror and I wasn't happy. I put on a happy face. If you're around me, I was jovial and joking and always had a smile on, but I just really didn't like who I had become physically, and even the physical aspect of it was then impacting my mental aspect because I was so upset with my physical appearance. So, and I knew everything I was doing wasn't working, and that's where I was struggling. The workouts, the trying to eat like the healthy-ish plans like just didn't seem to work. So
And one of the things that I find challenging for some individuals, especially individuals who come from doing a lot of exercise, is we don't recommend exercise in the program. We recommend taking the stress response down. So many women are just so overwhelmed and they're really busy, and you have a 6-year-old, so it is incredibly busy. How did you switch your mindset to going from exercising multiple hours a day to not exercising?
yeah, it really was for me. It really was about that inflammation factor of realizing that, although I'm working out, I'm doing all the stuff, and I'm not seeing the response, and then having the conversations and talking with the coaches and being like, oh, that could be why I'm not seeing the results, is actually like I I'm burnt out. I was in a burnout stage. I When I started the program, I work full time. So I manage a staff of 40 people. I have a 6-year-old. I was going to school full time. And it was like, let's just pile more things on top of me and see how much can I handle, and how can I manage this, and then trying to add exercise into it. And it was like my body was like in a constant, they say that flight or fight mode. And I feel like I was always in a fight mode all the time. And I was like, okay, I got to take a step back and really just sort of like level myself out. And that will be where I'm just in a better state, like mentally and physically.
And how much, I mean, for other individuals, it can be hard to appreciate how much mental health and your mindset goes into whole body wellness. How do you attribute all of that self development work that you did? Like, did that contribute, do you think, to your success?
It did. It did. I don't sit still well. I'm probably fidgeting in this entire video. But I I tried to start meditating. And some of it is like not like this transcendental meditation. It's literally just sit still for 5 minutes. Like sit and listen to. And so I think just taking a step back and really being like, okay, I have to focus on me. I have to focus on, everyone always says you can't pour from an empty cup. And it really is about like writing down what's important to me. And I think that's the big thing, like going into any program, is knowing what do you want from it, not what have other people necessarily gotten, but like what do I need. And I felt like this program really targeted that in the conversations, and even the pre-screening that I did. It was like more about like what is going on with you, not like here's what we can do, but like what do you need.
Mhm.
And that seemed to really help me, guide me in this thing. And the self-help work that I did, I think, from my mental state of being, almost twice as large as I was when I graduated high school, just knowing that I needed to make a change and I wanted to make a change really was the big thing. So it was a mental block of, I'm going to do this and I'm going to get over it.
Mhm. And I love that. Like, what defines success for you, and how do you know that you're there, and how are you going to feel? Because so often we're fixated on this specific number on the scale that what happens is you get to that number and you just change it, right? Like, you have to know it's a feeling that you want, right? And sometimes we can even choose to feel that feeling ahead of time, which is quite powerful to recognize. Awesome. Tell me a little bit about, was there anything that was in the call or on the website, or did you see something on Instagram? Like, what led you to this program?
Yeah, I happened to see a post that someone on Facebook that someone commented on, and it was another person that had gone through the program, and they were like, I did this and I've lost like 20 pounds and like 17 inches in 6 weeks. And, and I was sort of like, huh, what did you do? um, and she sort of told me, she gave me like the name of the program and the website. And I was like, oh, okay. So I went out and I Googled and I, researched and looked up a bunch of information about you. And, and I was like, I think that this would be at least worth doing a discovery call and seeing, is this something that's going to fit into my life? I have a brother who's done keto and he's like, just do keto, it'll work for you. And I'm like, I don't know that I can just do keto. Like, I have a 6-year-old and a husband that don't need to do keto. So it's an adjustment. And at least with this program, it was like, yes, I might be not doing some of the things, but I can still cook them the same things I'm cooking, and maybe they're going to have potato or mac and cheese or something. And I'm just not going to eat that. Right. Like, it's not, I didn't feel like I was adding bacon and fat to everything. So, and worrying about him. So it really just was a matter of like seeing the post and being like, oh, and then when I got on the discovery call with Brittany, it was amazing. Like, it was like, you know what, this is definitely meant to be where I need to be and the program that I need to do.
Amazing. And how did you cook? Like, I know healthy food is for everybody and whole foods is for everybody, and it's pretty simple once you figure it out how to make those modifications. But how did your husband, how did your son do? Did they
They
survive?
did fine. Yeah. I mean, I will say my son was like, are we going to have chicken again? And like, we didn't even have chicken that much, like, but it was like twice a week, 3 times a week, which is what we eat it normally anyway. So I don't know why what his big deal was. But I think for starting it when I did in June, like, it was easy because it was grill season, right? So I could just grill whatever meat I wanted and it wasn't a big deal. On the colder days when I had to cook stuff inside, and it was kind of like, how am I going to, or like if we did tacos, finding like, how am I going to eat tacos and but I do like a taco salad, and I was able to find taco seasoning that was like gluten-free, dairy-free, like all the no additives, really surprisingly easy. And that worked really well, and they didn't notice the swap. So for the most part, they did well. It was anything I pan sauteed, I just used like a chicken broth or something to cook it instead of oils.
Mhm.
And I find myself still doing that just because of the reactions that I have. So for the most part, it wasn't an adjustment, with the exception of I just don't eat the mac and cheese and the potatoes that they eat, which I don't really enjoy potatoes anyway. So
And that's why I love working with women too, especially moms, because it's, if we get mom really healthy, it trickles down into the whole family and the next generation. So there's a huge influence that women have, and men too. But a lot of times, just traditionally, women are doing more of the cooking in the home. The other obstacle that you had is travel, right?
yeah.
So not only were you busy working full time, cooking for your family, but you also traveled a lot. That typically can throw people off or shift their mindset. How did you do it? How did you wrap your head around that?
Yeah. So I would say the first thing I did is, I mean, I brought my food scale. Like, I brought it with me because I was like, I don't want to have to guesstimate. I don't want to have to rely on something. So, and then we took one trip and it was 8 hours in the car, probably a little longer. And so I knew my water intake was going to be low that day because I don't want to drink a ton of water while I'm driving. And so I really just sat down and figured out, okay, what can I bring that are going to be healthy and fill me up and like easy to travel with. So I just would do like the cut up peppers and cucumbers and like maybe some nuts and just really trying to focus on that. I when we went on one trip, I packed my scale. And I packed my scale because I knew the place I was going had a scale, but it wasn't the scale was used to. And so I wanted to make sure that the things that I was doing and the activities or the different foods that I was eating, I wanted to monitor that and just stay within my plan. So that was kind of one of the big ones, is just really trying to think about where am I going to be and what do I need? If I'm going to be at somebody's house, are they going to have snacks that I can eat, or are they going to have meals that I can prepare? And communicating. I got lucky. I traveled mostly with family, so a lot of them are fairly good about understanding what I was doing and why I was doing it. And I would, if I felt like someone wasn't going to follow the rules of what I needed, I would just be like, I'll cook. Just let me take care of it. And then that way I can kind of make sure mine stays off. We have a camp we share with our in-laws, and we would go up and my brother-in-law would be like, I'm going to make, hamburgers, which I can eat a burger, right? So I'd measure out the meat, and he'd like, oh, I'm going to put the seasoning in it. And I'm like, I'm not going to have that seasoning because I read the label.
Mhm.
The first ingredient is brown sugar. So I was like, and he's like, why? There's nothing in it. And I'm like, and then he looks at the label and he's like, oh, that's actually not really good for you, is it? And I was like, not really. So, it was really just about making sure people knew what was going on, and taking the steps to be prepared.
Yeah.
Is what really helped me. So, yeah.
And eliminating things like the brown sugar seasoning and the different sauces, how did you feel the meals tasted? Like, did you still enjoy the meals that
Oh,
you were cooking?
yeah, I had no issues with that. We use a seasoning, and it's literally just garlic, salt, and pepper, and we put it on like all of our meats, and it makes it taste great. But it
Mhm.
doesn't have anything else in it. That's all it is. So, I found that that's way better. I didn't have an issue eliminating any of the sauces or anything like that. When I did the program in June, I did a Hello Fresh for a while and was getting the deliveries, but every single meal had a sauce with it. And I was like, okay, how can I make this without the sauce? And still have all the same flavors. So I would look at what's in the sauce and then see, okay, can I alter it or make it differently?
Make it
So that
healthier.
it still gets the same flavors. Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about, you've done 2 rounds. So you've went through losing and maintenance,
Yep.
losing and maintenance. How do you feel your nutrition is now? Have you like removed some of the scale stuff? Is it just
Yeah.
flowing?
So I have removed the measuring of everything. There are every once in a while I'll pull it back out and look at it.
Mhm.
I would say like the last couple of weeks have been a little bit more of a struggle for me, just because there's like Christmas parties and things happening. But and I actually texted Brittany the other night and was like, oh my gosh, like I have to get back on track. Because I've noticed like that, like I had cheese twice in one day and my face just itched, and my whole body was just like, oh, what are you doing to me? And I was like, how quick the response is to that. And I was like, you know what? I know what it is. So it's an easy fix for me to just get like levels that back. Um, I, for the most part, I know what I can eat and what I'm going to eat. So I think it's just that's been okay for me. I don't pre-measure all of my vegetables as much anymore. I'm kind of like,
Go for it.
I'm gonna eat those, right? My meats, I increased, and so I sort of know what it looks like and how much I can have. Now that I've done 2 rounds of it, I sort of know where I'm at, and the same with my fruits. Like I kind of have a pretty good idea of what that serving size looks like. I like to use the scale every once in a while to make sure I'm still like staying in
Eating
the
enough. Yeah.
and not like undercutting myself sometimes. So
Mhm.
I think is a little bit difficult. Breakfast is still a struggle for me. I'm not hungry after doing 2 rounds. Like introducing even after doing it last time, I just don't get as hungry in the morning because I'm so used to I'm gonna eat it this time and this time, my body just is adjusted to it. So I sort of have stayed mostly with the intermittent fasting, except I did go back to putting some creamer in my coffee.
Right.
So technically breaking it, but not really like having a full meal.
And I love that you said that, because it's so important that we get, and our goal is intuitive eating. Like, I love the idea of intuitive eating, listening to your body, understanding that your food should be tons of vegetables and your lean protein. But the problem with it initially is we're not taught in our society what should our meals look like, right? We're kind of taught from a child, are you full, are you stuffed, finish your plate, like all of the language around food and using food as a reward. And do you need a snack, should you eat something before you go? All of that really sets us up to not know how to intuitively eat. Yes, there is measurements in the program, but it's a learning tool. It's not supposed to be a restrictive tool. It's, are you getting enough cruciferous vegetables? Are you getting enough protein? And then phasing it out and bringing it back in maybe once a month to make sure that your protein's still up, I think is a great strategy.
Yeah, and I the last round when I went into maintenance, I went on to I got a Freestyle Libre, so I was able to do my blood glucose, continuous glucose. So I was able to see, which was interesting, which foods cause different spikes or valleys, and so I was able to kind of monitor how I was eating, what I was eating, and what was actually causing the raises in it. So I was able to sort of say, okay, like maybe that food isn't a great food, but if I pair that food with something else, then it doesn't seem to cause the same sort of reaction. So if I want to have a piece of sourdough bread, but I pair it with a lean protein, I don't see the same like massive
Mhm.
spike in blood sugar that I would see if I just ate the bread alone.
Yeah. And it's so amazing. So the continuous blood glucose monitor is just a little sensor, a little sticker with there is a little needle in it, but it's small. That, exactly like you said, sometimes we know, right? We know protein's important. We know carbohydrates can raise blood sugar, but actually seeing the real time feedback is so valuable. And then you're like, okay, yes, I do fit what everybody's saying,
Yeah.
right? Can you tell us some words or advice for somebody who is thinking about making a health change, or they're thinking about joining the Reset program?
Yeah, so the one thing that I would say in my piece of advice, I mean, I tell everybody just you should do it, right? That's the first thing anybody who asks me, I say absolutely do it. It is a lot about learning what works for you and what doesn't. And I think it isn't just I think people are like, oh, it's just a super restrictive diet. No, that's not what it's about. It really is about learning what are your inflammation factors. And markers and having the guidance from the coaches is amazing. Using the app and then looking through what you eat and maybe how you've been doing and what you've been doing. So my piece of advice is I would say like do your research, but also like talk to people that have done it, and they'll be honest with you. And is it easy? No. Is it worth it? Yes. And I think that's the end result, right? There is no magic pill.
Mhm.
um, there's no spoonful of sugar thing that can make everything go away. Like it just doesn't work that way. It does take work,
Mhm.
but it's all about what you want to put into it.
Absolutely. And I even have individuals and colleagues ask me, like, what are you giving people? I'm like, it's just foundational, like mindset, sleep, healthy whole foods, proper nutrition, key supplementation, but there's nothing that you can take in the absence of doing the work.
Yeah.
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 And this one I love. Anybody who's currently on the MRP, maybe they're in week 2. I don't know if you had a week 2 kind of like, what did I get myself into? But what would you tell somebody who's on the program that just needs a little bit of motivation to make it to the end?
I mean, I think really just stick with it because you'll get over that hump, right? It'll get easier as you go through it, and then use the resources. I think I had questions, and I was like, "Can I do this? Can I do that?" And I went out to the Facebook group and asked, and people responded, and the support groups were great, which is super helpful. And your coaches, I mean, I can't say enough nice things about Brittany. She was awesome.
Good.
Text her and be like, "Hey, I have a question." I just have a quick question. I don't, and she was always super responsive and great. So which was amazing. I think that's one of the big things, and knowing that they're there, and that's what they're looking for you to succeed as well.
Mhm.
And so, the same thing I always tell people is like, use your resources, and your resources oftentimes are people. It's other people in the program. It's saying, it's going out to the Facebook and saying, I'm in week 2 and I'm struggling. Is anyone else, been through this? Can they give me a piece of advice? But it does get easier. You get into a routine, you get into a rhythm, and you sort of follow into that until you get to maintenance, where you're like, oh, what am I going to introduce and when?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time this morning and sharing all of your advice and tips. It's incredibly valuable for anybody who is kind of in a funk, like looking to make a change, or somebody who's in the program thinking, you just need that positivity to lift you up to get to the end. It is so worth it once you feel good. And it's not about the number on the scale. That's just a side effect of all the other benefits that you truly get, and what I want for people. So I love that you said that. I appreciate the whole body wellness, and thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you.